Tory Lanez, convicted of shooting rapper Megan Thee Stallion, sentenced to 10 years in prison.
The court in Los Angeles has sentenced Harvey Weinstein to 16 more years in prison. American singer R. Kelly has been sentenced to 30 years in prison by a U.S. federal court in New York.
By 2025, the glitz of fame has never looked more fragile. Just look at Tory Lanez. He's not on stage. He's in a cell, barely surviving a near-fatal prison attack after the Megan Thee Stallion shooting case.
Rapper Tory Lanez has been charged with shooting artist Megan Thee Stallion during an argument.
That's the shocking reality of celebrity downfall in the digital age. The spotlight that once protected them now exposes every crack. And the same internet that built their empires now watches as they rot behind bars. Today, we uncover the truth about 15 celebrities who are still rotting in jail right now. But Tory's brutal attack is just the beginning of a darker reality. The Digital Downfall Kings. The story of 15 celebrities who are still rotting in jail right now isn't just about the crimes they committed. It's about how fame itself turned into their prosecutor. Because in the digital age, your phone isn't just a stage, it's also evidence. The same posts, photos, and recordings that once built empires now sit in courtroom exhibits, replayed frame by frame. And nowhere is that clearer than in the fall of Sean Diddy Combs, Danny Masterson, and Harvey Weinstein. Let's start with Diddy. For decades, he was the blueprint for a music mogul. Multi-platinum records, fashion lines, and that billion-dollar Ciroc empire. He was hip-hop royalty, a man who looked untouchable. Yet, in 2025, he's not sipping champagne in Miami. He's behind bars, and not just because of whispered rumors, but because prosecutors pulled receipts straight from his own lifestyle. According to court filings, surveillance footage, leaked texts, and even live-stream clips turned into the backbone of the case. And when Diddy's lawyers begged a federal judge for no jail time earlier this summer, CBS News confirmed the judge denied it flat out.
Judge denied bail or release pending his sentencing because he was found guilty of 2 serious crimes.
Think about that. One of the most powerful figures in music history couldn't even make bail. What made it sting worse was the way the internet watched it unfold in real time. Clips from Diddy's infamous parties, once flexed as proof of status, became visual evidence of coercion and abuse. Witness testimonies matched the timestamps. Even private messages, pulled from encrypted apps, surfaced as prosecutors painted a picture of a man who thought he was untouchable. Can you imagine being worth hundreds of millions one day, then sitting in a Rikers cell the next, knowing it was your own digital footprint that sealed your fate? And then there's Danny Masterson, the sitcom star who once coasted on the fame of That 70s Show.
Breaking news, That 70s Show's actor Danny Masterson has been sentenced to 30 years to life in prison for the rapes of 2 women.
In his case, it wasn't just digital traces. It was an entire system that finally cracked under scrutiny. The Los Angeles jury didn't buy the Hollywood defense or the wall of silence built around him through Scientology connections. In 2023, he was sentenced to 30 years to life for rape convictions. And in 2024, ABC confirmed that he was admitted to state prison, stripped of every luxury he once flaunted. But here's the twist. The Scientology angle wasn't just background noise. Emails, court documents, and years of digital communications between the church and its members exposed how accusers were discouraged from coming forward. In the old days, those letters would have disappeared into filing cabinets. In the internet age, they were leaked, spread, and dissected by millions. The very secrecy that once protected him collapsed under the weight of searchable PDFs and archived chats. By the time Masterson stepped into prison, the entire world had already watched his trial play out like a true crime docuseries. And then we come to Harvey Weinstein, the name that detonated the Me Too movement. Most people think they know his story. Powerful producer, decades of silence, then an avalanche of allegations. But here's the part the mainstream rarely mentions. Weinstein's legal downfall hasn't been a straight line. Yes, he was convicted of crimes in both New York and Los Angeles. But in 2024, Newsweek reported that he was spotted inside Rikers Island during an interview, awaiting yet another round of hearings. And the reason he's still there in 2025 is because appeals, split verdicts, and procedural back and forth have kept him stuck in a kind of legal limbo. The digital fingerprints here were brutal. Dozens of emails, text messages, and even scripts that showed quid pro quo deals surfaced in court. In a world before smartphones, these exchanges might have been dismissed as hearsay. But prosecutors didn't need speculation. They had actual timestamps, subject lines, and message logs that showed how Weinstein blurred the line between power and exploitation. What once made him the king of Hollywood deals ended up being the exact evidence that destroyed him. And here's the bigger picture. These aren't isolated scandals. Diddy, Masterson, and Weinstein represent a new kind of downfall. The digital downfall kings. They weren't just betrayed by witnesses. They were betrayed by their own archives. The very tools they used to showcase power became the receipts that proved abuse. And that's the late-night gut punch here. Fame used to mean control. You could spin headlines, buy silence, and bury scandals. But in 2025, nothing ever really disappears. Screenshots outlive NDAs. Videos resurface. Group chats become exhibits. And the higher you climb, the more content there is to pull apart. So, when we say 15 celebrities are still rotting in jail right now, it's not just about handcuffs and courtrooms. It's about watching empires collapse under their own weight, with the internet itself acting as judge and jury. But Diddy, Masterson, and Weinstein, their stories, as shocking as they are only the surface. Because the truth is, these Hollywood elites had it easy compared to the music moguls whose empires crumbled overnight. The music industry's fallen titans. If the downfall of Diddy, Weinstein, and Masterson felt like empires collapsing under their own receipts, the music industry's fallen titans take that collapse to another level. These are the kings who built entire soundtracks for our lives, only to watch their own worlds burn while they sat in prison cells. And let's start with the one name everyone knows, but few want to say out loud: R. Kelly. For years, he called himself the heir to the king of pop, a voice that dominated charts, weddings, and radio stations. But in 2025, R. Kelly isn't headlining arenas. He's begging for his life inside a federal cell. Court records show he filed desperate appeals to overturn his trafficking convictions, but every attempt keeps getting denied. Imagine being the man who once sang that he believed he could fly, and now spending every morning chained to a prison routine, asking the same system he once thought he could outsmart for mercy. And here's the question: who would have thought the so-called king of R&B would spend his final years fighting just to breathe free air again? But Kelly's not alone in this descent. Take Suge Knight, the Death Row Records co-founder who once made hip-hop look like a gangster empire. He helped launch Tupac, Dr. Dre, and Snoop Dogg into global icons. Yet by 2025, Suge is locked in with a 28-year sentence for manslaughter. According to Vice, he even tried to overturn it recently. The hearing? It didn't go well. Judges flat out dismissed his claims, leaving him staring down the same bleak calendar he's been stuck with for almost a decade. And here's the psychological twist. Suge was once the man whom everyone feared. His name carried power on the streets, in the studios, and even in the boardrooms. But in prison, fear doesn't buy you freedom. It only buys you isolation. Witnesses from inside say Suge has withdrawn, his health fading, his once towering figure shrinking in the confines of a cell. The man who once walked red carpets, surrounded by bodyguards, is now watched over by correctional officers, powerless to stop time from eroding his empire. Now, let's switch gears, because not every fallen titan is still living in the shadows of violence. Some are making prison their new stage, almost like they refuse to give up the spotlight. Case in point, Joe Exotic. Yes, the Tiger King himself. After the Netflix frenzy made him a household name, Joe became a meme, a punchline, and an odd sort of anti-hero. But in 2025, he's still rotting in prison, serving 21 years for murder for hire and animal abuse charges. And instead of fading into obscurity, Joe just announced his prison engagement, confirmed by CBS Texas. Think about how surreal that is. This man is not running a zoo or filming a reality show. He's locked in federal prison, yet he's still finding ways to make headlines. Prison marriage isn't just about love, it's about survival, about creating meaning in a world that strips you of everything else. And in Joe's case, it's also about refusing to let the internet forget him. The same flamboyant energy that once made him a Netflix star now keeps him relevant even in a prison jumpsuit. But here's the bigger question. Is that resilience? Or is it just denial dressed up in glitter? And then there's Tory Lanez, the freshest and perhaps most chilling example of what fame turned to ash looks like in 2025. Just months ago, the New York Times reported he was violently attacked in prison, stabbed in what officials called a near-fatal assault. This is the same Tory who once shared stages with Drake, who had the internet debating his every lyric. Now he's another body in the prison system, learning the hard way that celebrity status doesn't protect you inside. In fact, it can make you a target. Imagine the mental toll, knowing that every day, the same notoriety that once sold out tours now paints a bullseye on your back in the prison yard. What ties all these stories together is the way prison breaks the illusion of invincibility. R. Kelly went from global superstar to desperate petitioner. Suge Knight went from a feared mogul to a man no judge will listen to. Joe Exotic turned his sentence into a soap opera just to stay relevant. Tory Lanez is fighting to stay alive. These are the music industry's fallen titans, and their psychological decline is playing out in public, step by step. And here's what makes this chapter sting more than the last. Musicians don't just lose freedom, they lose the soundtracks they lived by. In prison, there's no studio, no stage, and no roaring crowd. Just silence, steel, and the echoes of their former selves. The kings of rhythm are forced to march to a beat that they no longer have control over. But here's the thing. While musicians face violence, loneliness, and a daily grind that strips away their identities, the white-collar criminals are living entirely different prison realities. And that contrast is where this story takes an even stranger turn. The white-collar prisoner's paradise. So, while R. Kelly, Suge Knight, and Tory Lanez are battling for survival inside rough prisons, there's another set of inmates living a completely different reality. These are the tech fraudsters, media manipulators, and business tycoons, and their prison life almost looks like a twisted summer camp compared to the violent grind the others face. And that's the hidden truth about 15 celebrities who are still rotting in jail right now by 2025. Not all cells are created equal. Take Elizabeth Holmes, once Silicon Valley's golden girl, now serving an 11-year sentence for Theranos fraud. And yet, in her Texas federal prison, she's been spotted jogging around the yard, carrying weights, and sticking to a full-on workout routine. Fox Business literally ran photos of her exercising like it was a morning at equinox. And in a Fortune interview, she admitted she's still sharing business insights with fellow inmates. So yes, the woman who tricked investors out of hundreds of millions is now running mini MBA sessions behind bars. Let me ask you, does that sound like punishment or just a new kind of startup incubator? Then there's Sam Bankman-Fried. The so-called crypto king was sentenced after the FTX collapse. Most people thought he'd vanish into the system, but according to Business Insider, SBF just had years shaved off his sentence for cooperation. And in prison, he's been forming strange alliances with his cellmates, reportedly swapping financial advice and even chess strategies. Imagine losing billions of customer dollars, then using your time inside to become the prison's unofficial finance professor. Guess who's still running business deals from behind bars? And then there's Ghislaine Maxwell. For her, prison hasn't been about barbed wire and cold concrete, but transfers and upgrades. CNN confirmed she's now housed in a minimum security facility in Texas, where the environment looks more like a college dorm than a maximum security lockup. Maxwell has been spotted working in the prison library and even teaching yoga classes. Think about that for a second. A woman convicted of sex trafficking minors is now leading Downward Dog in a federal facility that barely looks like punishment. And if you thought it couldn't get stranger, let's talk about Todd and Julie Chrisley. Once reality TV's picture of Southern wealth, they were locked up for tax fraud. But in 2025, Todd's name popped back up when CNN reported he was being considered for a presidential pardon. And by May, Fox confirmed Todd Chrisley had actually been released. Imagine that. One day you're scrubbing floors in a federal prison, the next you're home because of political influence and legal maneuvering. The contrast is wild. Violent offenders like Tory Lanez are getting stabbed, while white-collar criminals are jogging, teaching yoga, and even scoring early releases. It raises the question, is prison really about justice or just status? Why does one group rot while another practically thrives? And here's where this story cuts deepest. For the music moguls, the actors, and the predators, prison means losing their empire, their freedom, and sometimes their lives. But for the white-collar elite, prison almost looks like a pause button, a reset, a networking retreat with walls around it. And if that doesn't make you rethink the system, nothing will. Because while some live in prison like it's paradise, others face the most brutal reality of all, knowing they may never see freedom again. The lifers, no hope, no future. And while the white-collar inmates might be jogging, teaching yoga, or even angling for pardons, there's another category of prisoners in this story, the lifers. These are the celebrities who aren't counting down a few years until freedom, but staring down decades, maybe even the rest of their lives, behind steel bars. No shortcuts, no luxury perks, just time that stretches so far, it swallows any hope of redemption. Take Michael Jace, the actor who played a cop on The Shield. In real life, he was sentenced to 40 years for murdering his wife. 40 years. Can you even imagine looking at a calendar and realizing that by the time you're eligible for release, you'll be in your 70s, maybe 80s? The man once walking red carpets now wakes up every morning to the same cell walls, the same routine, and the same crushing awareness that he may never breathe free air again. And that's the reality for many of the 15 celebrities who are still rotting in jail right now by 2025. Their legacies are already over, but their sentences keep going. And then there's Ryan Grantham, the young actor from Riverdale. At just 24, he was sentenced to life for killing his own mother, with a minimum of 14 years before he can even apply for parole. Think about that. He won't even have the chance to ask for release until he's close to 40. His life is frozen, locked away in the most brutal way. And the irony? He was once on screen playing characters that lived in glossy, scripted worlds. Now, his reality is as dark as it gets. No second takes, no rewrites, just the weight of knowing your future is gone before it even began. And then we come to Derek Chauvin, the former police officer whose trial dominated global headlines. He was stabbed 22 times in prison, according to Corrections 1, and has now been transferred to another facility for protection. The symbolism there is almost chilling. Chauvin was once the man in uniform, the authority on the streets. Now, he's the target, living with a sentence that stretches decades, facing enemies he can't control. Survival is the only goal left. And if those stories weren't heavy enough, consider Jared Fogle, the disgraced Subway spokesman. He's not in for life, but his sentence stretches until 2029. And here's the thing, 2029 might sound close, but when you're behind bars, every year drags like 10. He'll serve at least 15 years total before he sees freedom. And when he does step out, the world will have moved on completely. The brand deals, the fame, the public trust, all gone forever. Can you imagine facing 40 years behind bars, knowing you'll likely die in prison? That's what these lifers are grappling with. Fame once gave them everything, but now it's nothing more than a ghost of who they used to be. And for viewers scrolling late at night, this is the hidden truth. Some celebrities don't get a redemption arc. They just fade into the prison system, forgotten until their obituaries resurface their names. And after seeing these devastating falls from grace, the only question left is this: what can we learn about the ultimate price of fame? And that's the real cost of fame in 2025. In this digital age, every DM, every tweet, and every video becomes evidence, flipping social media into the courtroom's loudest witness. Some stars once worshipped are now case studies, their downfall streamed in real time. But here's the question: is it justice or digital execution? And what's the real price of building your life on followers and fame when the same crowd turns against you? If you want more shocking truths like this breakdown of 15 celebrities who are still rotting in jail right now by 2025, hit subscribe. Thank you for watching.